Hey everybody, my name is Nicole. Welcome to the Pine Cottage. If you are new here, welcome. We talk about knitting and reading and simple living here depending on the day. Today we are going to talk about all three. It has been several weeks since I've posted a video, and I will talk more about why and kind of the future of this channel a little bit later in the episode, but I just wanted you to know that we're going to be talking about all those things here today. It's going to be a pretty long one, so get comfortable, get cozy, grab a project to work on, and something warm to drink or cold to drink depending on what the weather's like by you, and let's just get started. We're going to start off by talking about some knitting. I don't have anything finished to show you because April was definitely a month. The last time we spoke, I had started on these socks, and I do have one finished. So I suppose I have a half finished object to show you. This is in a homespun house fern colorway, and the mini for the contrasting heels, toes, and cuffs are the mini that was given in a sock subscription. I don't remember what it was from, but it was from one of my sock subscriptions. So this is the first sock, and then I have the cuff and the heel done on the second one, and I have done my gusset decreases, and I'm now just knitting around to the foot, through the foot. So I don't have that much longer to go, as you can see. So that is the first thing I wanted to show you. I typically do my socks cuff down. I like to do a good 20 to 25 round cuff, and then I like to do 60 to 75 stitches for the leg, depending. And then I do a slip stitch, heel flap, and gusset. That's the fit that I like the best. And then I do, for my foot, I do about a 72 round foot. And then I decrease for the toe and Kitchener at the end. So that's my vanilla, typical sock recipe. I knit my sock 64 stitches on US 2 needles, which are, I believe, 2.75 millimeter, because I am a tight knitter. So that gives me the best fit and the best gauge. Sometimes, though, I feel like they can get a little bit loosey-goosey, especially if I wear them more than once. So when that happens, I wonder, I probably could have gone down to like a US 1.5. And I may try that in the future, but I haven't yet. I have a lot of US 2 needles, so I can typically have more than one or two socks going at once, which gets me into trouble, but I do that sometimes. So I don't know. For now, I'm sticking with the US 2, but I may venture into that US 1.5 millimeter, or 1.5, which is 2.5 millimeters in the future. I don't think it'll make that big of a difference, but it might just snug up the sock a little bit to make it not so loose. So this sweatshirt that I have on today, my daughter bought it for me for my birthday. My birthday was April 29th. And I'm wearing the back and the front because she said, and I agree, that having what's on the back looks better on the back. And it just says, I'm in my mama era. And she bought that for me. So I keep messing with this because it is made to be in the back, and I feel like it's choking me. Maybe I should just turn it around and wear it how it was made to be worn. I also got a little bit further on my dad's vest. I have been knitting on the gift that was supposed to be given to him at Christmas time, and it is now May, and we are still working on it. And this is Knitting Pure and Simple's Basic Vest for Men. and it's just a simple men's sweater vest. And I am knitting this in Knit Picks Swish DK and the colorway Indigo Heather. Sorry, my fingers are in the way. And I had to rip this out once because, again, I am a tight knitter and the waistband was too tight. It calls for a smaller needle around the waistband and then to go up a size, and I chose not to do that the second time I cast this on. So this is all using a US 7. I talked about maybe going up to a US 8, but I decided just to go to a US 7. It calls for a US 6. And I did the same for the ribbing, and now I am just knitting my way up the body. I have to knit quite a ways up to get to the armholes, so I have a ways to go, but it is just nice mindless knitting that I can do. I can't work on it in the evening because the yarn is dark and my eyes are tired towards the end of the day, but I do work on this in the mornings or in the afternoons when I can, because it's just mindless. So that is my second WIP, my second work in progress. And then my third work in progress, I didn't get very far in it, but I did add a couple rows. Let me find where I ended here. Oops, this is gonna come out because I didn't put progress keeper on there. And this is my granny stripe blanket. Try to find where I was before. When I last spoke with you, I was here, and I just finished that color and moved on and added this green. So that's kind of what I'm doing now. I have quite a bit left. That's what I have left. And this is just a crochet project, just doing some granny stitches and they're little clusters if you're not familiar with crochet. And I'm just adding in scraps and leftovers and adding them into this blanket until I feel like it's done. And this probably is just going to go on my bed. Or come with me camping. I feel like it would be a good camping blanket. Now is as good a time as any to let you know that everybody's home again today, and it's noisy here. Hi you guys, I totally forgot to show you my acquisitions for knitting. Let me do that real quick. I wish there was somewhere I could set this because I put everything away already. So this is Palmer Yarn Company. This is their May colorway, and this is in the colorway Charm. It's 80% merino, 20% nylon, 400 yards, and it is beautiful. I love those little rusty orange tones in there. And the pale, pale pinky peach, the mini, beautiful. Okay, so that is the first one. Sorry, and I turned my sweatshirt back around because it was driving me crazy that it was choking me. This is by Farmer's Daughter Fibers. This is May's Sock Squad color, Out of the Mouths of Babes. It is 75% micron. What? No. It is 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, 463 yards. And it is a peachy pink. And this is almost the same color as my hat, which is totally cute. And that is that. So I've really been doing well with sticking to my not buying anything except for my sock subscriptions. And I'm just going to stick with that for a while. I thought about canceling them, but because I just haven't been knitting as much, but I'm not going to. I'm going to finish out the year. So these are my only two acquisitions. And then for my birthday, my husband gave me a gift certificate to Maple and Thread and Maple. I almost said Maple and Thread. I think it's Thread and Maple. To get another page for my leather binder. So I am ordering a Notions page for my birthday gift. So I thought that was very sweet. It was a surprise. I did not ask for that. I'm first going to talk about our April book club book, which was Wave by Sonali Durrani-Agala. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but this was our April book club book. As I said in the last book video, I am no longer going to give books star ratings because I don't feel like that's fair to the author, especially when it's a memoir, because they're writing about their life and their feelings and their emotions, their trauma, and I don't think it's appropriate to rate that. But also, it's so subjective. It's, everybody has their opinions, and I certainly have mine, and what I might call a 4-star read or a 5-star read, you might think is a 2-star read. So I just think it's silly to rate them. So I decided to not do that anymore. So as far as this book goes, it was very much packed with emotion as far as the event that happened. Like, as I'm reading the beginning of this book, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, if this were me. I'm envisioning myself in this situation, having to fight for my life, and then thinking, did I do enough to save my family? She goes through all of these stages of grief, not necessarily in order, and she revisits some time and again. And guilt and pain and anguish and anger, and those aren't all the stages of grief, but these are the things that she's addressing. And I'm struggling to find words here. It very much seemed like a stream of consciousness book. And I will say, in the acknowledgments at the end of the book, she thanks her therapist for helping her get to this point. And that struck me because as I was reading this, I very much felt like this book was her therapy right onto the page. Not that that's a bad thing, but I feel like it was very much disjointed, very much not written like a novel, which it's not. It's a memoir. And I felt like in a lot of areas of the book, her emotion was kind of not necessarily removed, but it was subdued. It was like she put a filter on it. She didn't quite let herself be vulnerable to the full feelings that she was having as she wrote this, because that's painful to revisit, right? But as the reader, I found it difficult sometimes to feel emotion with some of the things that she was writing. Like, I thought for sure I was going to bawl my eyes out through this book, and I didn't. And I think it's because I felt like she was holding back. And I can definitely relate to that. I mean, I lost my brother 9 years ago, and I didn't start grieving right away because I had 2 babies to raise, and I was finishing school, and I couldn't lose it. I couldn't break down. I couldn't stop living to grieve. And so I suppressed it, and I pushed it down, and I pushed it down. But then when it finally was like, you can't push down anymore, I fell apart a little bit. And I feel like this book is before she falls apart a little bit. There are pieces where she's kind of losing it, like there's one section where her brother is renting their family home to a family, and she is like stalking them a little bit. So, I mean, definitely her decision-making skills and her impulsivity is kind of going crazy a little bit. She's making not so great choices, but you also can see where she doesn't necessarily clean out her apartment and go through her husband and her children's possessions for years. So it's like, I'm not going to deal with that right now. And I'm not judging her. I'm not saying, well, she should have done this or she should have done that. All I'm saying is that it seems like the time period of this book, like, she hasn't gotten there yet. she hasn't gotten over the hill. And maybe, you know, everybody grieves differently. Maybe she never will. But I feel like in relating to myself, there's more in her than this. And I feel like she held back just a little bit because she wasn't ready to be that vulnerable on the page. And that's okay, because what she went through, she lost her entire family. And it's funny because we travel a lot with my parents. So it's the 6 of us all the time. And I just kept thinking of that. What if I lost all of them on one trip? I don't know if I could even get this far, because I couldn't write for the longest time after my brother passed. I still struggle to pick up the pen. So kudos to her for even getting this far. I just feel like there's more. And maybe she'll write another book, and I'll definitely read it. But I feel like this was process writing. This was, let me get what I can out on the page because I need to, but there's more. I don't know. Let me know what you think. I definitely can't say, oh, this was a great book or this was a terrible book. Like that, this isn't that kind of book. This is me just psychoanalyzing somebody that I never met that went through a horrific thing. I'm not qualified to do that. These are just my opinions, but that's how I felt reading it. Like, I was not brought to tears except for at the beginning when the tsunami came, because I was inserting myself in that situation and I was emotional at that time. But the rest of the book did not evoke any emotion from me. I felt very disconnected from her. And I feel like that was intentional because, like I said, I feel like if she allowed herself to be more vulnerable, she maybe would break. She wasn't maybe at that point where she felt like she could be. Total speculation on my part. Very curious to know how you guys feel about it. But this was the book for April, and definitely interested to see if she writes anything else. Some other books that I read during the month of April, I think I read a total of 5. I did listen to 1 audiobook, and let me find it on my Libby app, because thrillers I listen to on Libby because they're free, and I tend to not read thrillers a second time. So that just makes the most sense for me. I read All Good People Here by Ashley Flowers, and I did not realize, because I didn't read any reviews before I listened to this book, I did not realize that this book was kind of written on the back of the JonBenet Ramsey story. And as I started reading it, I realized very quickly that this is what that book was based off of. It is fiction. It was a very good book, but definitely I could tell, oh, that's what she's writing about. I still was able to enjoy the book and listen to it, and it was a great thriller. It was a little bit more difficult for me to figure out like who the bad guy was, but I still did. But it was enjoyable. I enjoyed reading it. I don't really like to get into like, I don't know, situations where terrible things happen to children. I don't know. So I felt like once I realized it was about JonBenet Ramsey, I was like, oh, do I want to read this? But I was like, no, it's fiction. Just kind of pretend it's about something else. So I did. And I did enjoy it. She doesn't come out and say that that's who it's about, but it's very clear. And then when I went back and was reading the reviews, everybody was like, oh, this is based on that. And I was like, oh, yeah, duh. But it was good. I liked it. And if you like thrillers, you know, you'll probably like it too. The next book that I read in the month of April was The Future of Nutrition by T. Colin Campbell, PhD. I have read several books by Dr. Campbell, one of which is called Whole, W-H-O-L-E. If you are someone who is interested in plant-based eating or is a plant-based eater, I don't really call myself a vegan because I still use leather. I still occasionally will eat eggs, and depending on my stomach, on a holiday, I may have dairy. But I 99.5% of the time I'm plant-based. My body is very sensitive to dairy and to all meats and most seafood and some vegetables and fruits. So I did a food sensitivity test and all these things came up, which made sense because I was feeling the effects of these foods, but I wanted to be certain that what I thought was correct, and when my blood work came back, I was correct. So I do not have a sensitivity to eggs. The only reason that I avoid them or I avoid eating them daily is because of my cholesterol, which is why I went plant-based in the first place. I have a genetic cholesterol issue, so I try to just eat them once or twice a week. And if I feel like that's an issue, then I go down to even less than that. So I will have one egg weekly, depending. There are certain times of the year where we abstain from all animal products, and in that instance, I don't eat them. So anyway, back to the book. This was a very good book. It's insightful. It kind of piggybacks his book Whole that I was talking about, in that he's talking about traditional medicine and the system and how it's broken and how research is not unbiased, and how he struggled in his career because he went against the grain and was kind of shunned from the medical community in different areas for asking questions because of the way that things are funded. That is not always, asking questions is not always welcomed. So I really give credit to Dr. Campbell because I feel like he and some other plant-based doctors that I've read are pioneers in this area of bringing this knowledge to the masses and saying, hey, wait, you need to know this. Make your own choices about what you put in your mouth, but you need to know that this happened or this research is out there. But also, I'm not sitting here saying you should be a vegan too. You should be plant-based. Everybody's body is very different, and I've learned that lesson time and time again over the last several years, visiting different physicians, visiting different naturopath physicians, chiropractors. There is this formula out there that gets thrown at patients that this works for all people. Everybody should be on the Mediterranean diet. Everybody should be on the keto diet. Whatever it is. And then there's even, a group of people that might say everybody should be plant-based. I'm not one of those people that says there is a one-size-fits-all diet for the masses. What I am an advocate of is learning how your body works. And I have been working really hard over the last probably 7 years trying to figure out how my body works. And my body works best on a whole food plant-based diet. When I eat dairy, it's painful and my body gets inflamed. I do it occasionally because I have an issue with food addiction and I want to eat like everybody else. I enjoy the taste of the food. And sometimes I have a hard time saying no. And that's on me, but it's not something that my body likes. So I'm not perfect, and I don't think anybody is. And I do think that you should be able to enjoy life. But what I'm learning about me is enjoying my life also means not putting yourself in pain over a cupcake, or whatever. And I'm learning different ways to make food tasty and enjoyable without the things that hurt my body. So this book for me was definitely interesting in the way of learning the holes that lie in our medical system, and sometimes the fear that is put out there in order for groups of people to make more money. And I think that that's sad, and I think that that's the reality of the world that we live in right now. And reading books like this kind of go along with my whole homesteading desires and building my garden and eating fresh food and trying to be more self-sustainable. I'll never be 100% self-sustainable, I don't think, because I don't have the land to do that. But I just think that if we can get back to more basic ways of eating and caring for ourselves, the healthier we will be. Not relying on processed foods, synthetic ingredients in our skincare and in our cleaning products and all kinds of things. We're just going to be healthier all around. So this book lies somewhere in there, and I thought it was a very good read. Obviously, I have all my little, tabs, as I do, to mark the things that I want to read again. Books like this, I definitely read more than once. The fourth book that I read is called 1,000 Words, A Writer's Guide to Staying Creative, Focused, and Productive All Year Round. And this is by Jamie Adenberg. And sometimes I just like to read books that motivate me as a writer. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, I have struggled to pick up my pen and to write since the death of my brother. And I'm slowly feeling that drive to write again. And in books like these motivate me. Right now, I'm in a stage where I purely just write in my bullet journal, and I write reflections. I might write little blurbs, and some days those might turn into more. But I feel like it's a slow process, and it's part of my process, and reading other writers and just reading in general, starting talking about books on this channel really motivates me as a writer. Like, yes, I want to again. Look at this beautiful writing. I want to do that. I want to hone in on this craft as well as others. And this has always been my first love. Books and writing has always been my first love. And during, I've talked about this before, during my period of grief, it's been a long period, knitting saved me. So knitting has become, a big part of my life. But now I'm feeling that pull to get back into reading, to get back into writing. And this book was really a good thing for me to read. It was reassurance, like, yes, it's time. You're doing the right thing. And it just was inspiring, and I enjoyed it very much. So that was the fourth book that I read in April. And the fifth book that I read in April was The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. And I haven't read this book since high school. And I talked about in another video how I read Tom Sawyer a couple months ago because I was preparing myself for the May book club book, which is, again, James by Percival Everett, which is from the perspective of Jim, the enslaved man who is traveling down the river with Huck. So, having read Tom Sawyer and now reading Huckleberry Finn, I've had enough. I've had enough of the, colloquialism? Reading a book in the slang or the accent. I'm going to look it up. Hold on. Okay, colloquialism. A word or phrase that is not formal or literary, typically one used in ordinary or familiar conversation. So I feel like those books are written in a colloquial language, and it's very difficult to get through when you're used to reading correct grammar, number one. And so I was over it by the time I was done with Huckleberry Finn. The second thing was just reading the N-word so much was really, every time I would read it, it was just getting to me. And so I found myself going into this deep dive of, was Mark Twain racist? And there's all these articles online about this concept. And yes, he was born in the South. This is what I've learned. He was born in the South, and he initially was part of the Confederate Army, but then quit. And later in his life, he wrote about how slavery was wrong, and these books were written, from what I understand, as they were satirical. So it wasn't him writing these books as a racist white man. He was writing these in satire against slavery. And during that time, of course, that's a very subtle way to fight back. Maybe not everyone grasped that concept and thought that he was supporting racism. I don't know. And I think that's why those books are so controversial. I know those books are banned and have been banned over the years in some schools because of the content. And, you know, if in fact he was writing them as satire, I think that that's pretty genius for that time. And it just made me think, like, how powerful books really are, because we have all this technology now, and we have all these ways to communicate with each other, and we have the freedom to do that in this country. And at that time, there weren't as many ways to communicate, and it was not okay to be as vocal about your beliefs as it is now. And a lot of ways people fought back or spoke up or, you know, let their opinions be known was through writing. And so if that is accurate, I think that that's pretty genius. So I did start May's book, James by Percival Everett, and I just read about the first 50 pages, so I'm not that far in. And so far, I really like it a lot. I started looking up some interviews with the author to kind of see what his take is on Mark Twain and kind of what motivated him to write this book. I think it's pretty amazing to write a book and flip the narrative a little bit. So I really like that concept, and I look forward to looking more into, you know, his reflections on why he wrote the book and his thoughts on the book, and I'm hoping to share some of those at the end of the month. I picked up a couple other ones. I did show you some books that I have on my shelf that I did like a little haul in the last couple book videos, but I went to the library with my daughter the other day, and this was one that had been on my TBR list that I found at the library. It's called The Woman in the Photo, and it is a fiction book by Mary Hogan, and it is about the Johnstown, Pennsylvania flood. And my grandfather is from Johnstown, and his family was actually in the flood. So I thought that this would be really interesting to read, and so that's why I picked this one up. So I'm hoping to read this one this month. And then I was in Target last night with the kids. My daughter had some birthday money that was burning a hole in her pocket, and I saw this book that was also on my TBR list. This is by Salman Rushdie, and this is, I hope I'm saying his name right, Salman Rushdie. This book is called Knife, and this is a memoir. He was attacked by a man with a knife in 2022, and so this is his reflection on that event. So I'm looking forward to reading that one, and there's some other ones too that I may read depending on time. Which brings me to Simple Living. The Simple Living section this month, or reflections on April, mainly have to do with our basement renovation and the garden. So we knew 3 years ago that we wanted to renovate our basement. My husband is a plumber, and he gutted the basement and got it all set for plumbing to have another full bath. We live in a 4-bedroom house. It is small. We have one full bath right now that we are all sharing. So we knew we wanted a second shower in this house. He got the plumbing ready for that. And then the basement sat for years. And my daughter's going to be in high school next year. And I said, if we don't do it now, we are never going to do it. And we need the space. We are busting at the seams here. The kids' bodies are like physically growing and taking up more space, and we just need the room. So we decided just to go for it. And during the month of April, things got started. The carpenter was in here framing the walls. The electricians were here. Now we're at the stage where we are insulating and getting the drywall up. I am the painter, so I will have to be doing that during the month of May. And it's just moving pretty quickly, which is good, but it's very stressful. So that has been happening. To the left, we have a bathroom where Tony is spending way too much money on a fancy shower. That's going to be awesome. And next to the bathroom is the kitchen. We are going to have a stove, a refrigerator, pantry, sink, dishwasher, and then floating shelves on that back wall. And this right wall is going to be empty. Then this is going to be the furnace room slash canning room, cold cellar, freezer room, and all the electronics for the entertainment unit are going here in this corner. For the PlayStation and the DVD player and the internet and all that stuff is going to be on shelves right here. And then when you come out of this room, this is going to be the family room. This wall is going to have like an 88-inch TV or something. I don't know what he said. It was in the 80s. And bookshelves on either side. And the couch is going to be right up against here. And then when you come around here, this is going to have a table for games and cards and puzzles. And facing this wall, this little half wall, is going to have a countertop with stools so that you can either chat with the people at the table or watch whatever's on the TV. And then here under the stairs is going to be a bar with a wine fridge and wine storage, and then a cabinet for other liquor and a little light under there. And that's it. And then spring is here. So I spent a lot of time planting carrots and planting my onions and tending to the garden. And as I was doing that, I realized that the grass grows very quickly, and it was very difficult to get the lawnmower in there and to get the edger in there every time. So I decided I just wanted to pour stone over everything and kill the grass. So my first step was to lay some cardboard, and then I laid stone over the cardboard, and the garden is looking really, really good. I still have plans to expand the garden each year. I'm probably not. At first I thought I would expand it all at once and just do one big project, but I think that it's better with a garden to expand it a little bit each year to make sure that I can handle the new and additional things that I'm growing and learn about them instead of just doing it all at once. I think that would be overwhelming. So I have added a few more crops than last year and a little bit more space. And once I get a handle on that, I feel like I'll be in a better place to expand more next year. I've also planted some flower bulbs, and the neighbor just today gave me some irises. So I'm going to plant them out, but it's still raining, I think. As soon as it's done raining, I'm going to go out there and get those in the ground. So we've just been doing a lot of gardening, and it's been great. Everybody's here, except for my daughter. She's at school. But when my husband's home, it's like 5 people are home. He is loud and boisterous, and he's trying to organize all of the people that are coming in and out of the house to do this basement remodel, and I appreciate him very much, but I just need some peace and quiet sometimes, and I am very overwhelmed with our current situation. I know it's going to be a blessing when it's done, and I just have to push through, but it has been very difficult for me to have a moment of peace, let alone sit down and record a video. So for the time being, until I am feeling recharged and feeling like I have the time and the mental space and the quiet to do this, I'm going to just stick to one video a month. That's what I did in the past. I would post a video at the end of the month, and then I kind of increased it to one in the middle of the month and one at the end of the month. And then after Christmas time, I went to weekly videos. And there are seasons I feel like I could do weekly videos again. So I'm not saying that's never coming back. But right now, in this season of life, I definitely need to just do one video a month. So it might be a longer one like this one, but I can't handle the pressure of pulling out my camera when I feel like everything is chaos, and I can't quiet my brain long enough to focus to sit down and chat about anything for this channel. So right now, for a while, I'm just going to post at the end of the month, and it's going to include everything. It's going to include my knitting progress. It's going to include the books that I read. It's going to include our book club book. So we're still doing the book club. I just am going to incorporate everything into one video at the end of the month. And I apologize if this is disappointing to some of you. I really do enjoy the weekly format. I just am struggling right now to keep up with it. And I know that I am needed here by my family. And as all this chaos is going on in the house, my daughter is finishing up her 8th grade year and getting ready for high school. We're trying to wrap up my son's schooling, and things are just kind of accumulating, and I am needed first and foremost here in the home with my family. That's where I need to be. And then secondly, you know how much I enjoy simple living and restful, intentional living. And I feel like pushing myself to make deadlines is going against what I believe in my core. So I really am going to take that time that I need to organize my thoughts, organize my life, organize my brain, and rest, so that when I do come on here at the end of each month, I am refreshed and recharged and ready to enjoy our time together. So that's the plan for now. And, you know, as the weather breaks, we have a lot of family camping trips coming up, and we have, the kids are going to summer camp. So I am going to have a little pockets of time where I might post an extra video, or more. But I'm just going to let it come organically, and I'm not going to try to force anything, because every time I have tried to sit down and record one of these, something else has happened. A drill starts going, or there's jackhammering, or something's happening that's preventing me from recording. And instead of fighting it, I feel like I just need to lean into this little voice that's saying, slow down, Nicole, it's not time. So that's what I'm doing. My number one priority will always be my children and my husband and my home. And so if I feel like anything is interfering with that or taking up my time, or if I can't be genuine with them and I'm always pulling out a camera for social media, that's an issue for me. I hope that you guys are all doing well. I am so happy to be here speaking with you. I hope that you understand my little pull back from YouTube. It ebbs and flows. That's life. And I said in the beginning, when I started doing weekly videos, we'll see how it goes. And I think that at some stages of the year, I will be able to do that again. And then, you know, things shift a little bit and I'll pull back again. And it'll just go this way, because that's how our life goes. I hope that you all are having the time to do what is important to you and to be intentional about your own lives. And please leave a comment below if you would like to contribute to the conversation. I am looking forward to our book club books and your thoughts on the books. I will post a little picture here of June's book, just so that you can prepare if you want to read it with us. And then we're going to have a poll. Early June, I'm going to post on Instagram our poll, because I have gotten some suggestions for book club books. So if you want to add some of your suggestions, we're going to vote on the books for July, August, and September. So feel free to leave titles below if you're interested. And that's all I got. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and thank you for being here.